Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Brumfield, and I am the manager of career services at the Colorado School of Public Health. And today I have Sarah Mason. Sarah graduated from our school in 2022 with her master's in global health and health disparities. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Please tell us, what is your job title and where do you work?
Sure. So I am currently the government relations manager for Feeding Colorado. And Feeding Colorado is the state association of the 5 Feeding America food banks that serve the 1,200 food pantries all over Colorado, and they also serve Wyoming.
Oh, wow, that's so cool. Are you working remotely or are you in person?
I am. I moved to Fort Collins for
Yeah.
the graduate school program
Mhm.
and stayed for the job.
Nice.
So I'm currently remote, but my 5 food banks cover the whole state. So I try to travel as much as I can to go and see everybody. But I'm primarily based out of Fort Collins.
Nice, nice. That's awesome. Could you describe kind of like a typical day or maybe like typical projects you work on? I know there's no typical day, but
Right.
you know.
Sure. Sure. So right now, my current focus is on federal legislation and how federal policy and legislation might impact the charitable food system, so those food banks and food pantries, and the people experiencing food insecurity. So right now is a farm bill year. The farm bill is the biggest piece of federal legislation for food security, food access, uh, farming things. And so I'm in constant contact with our Colorado delegation and bother them a lot via phone calls and emails. I attend a lot of coalition meetings with groups across the country focused on the same issues, just to hear about what everybody else is up to in terms of advocacy and different projects. I draft a lot of op-eds for local papers, just bringing to light the issue of food insecurity in our state. Do a lot of social media posting and also do a lot of presentation to our internal network and like what I'm up to, and also external partners, other groups that we work with on our priorities and how we're bringing those to light to our delegation.
Wow, that is so cool. So
Thanks.
you're doing a lot of policy and advocacy work. Wow. So what courses or programs while you were a student helped prepare you for this role?
Yes. So the courses that were most helpful for me right now were I took a grant writing course that was super helpful for just understanding how granting works. I work for a nonprofit, and so we heavily rely on grants. So just understanding the process, I applied to a couple of grants as well, was super helpful, and it really helped me develop my writing skills, which I use all the time.
Yeah.
And I also took a public communications course, and that was so helpful for helping me get more comfortable with presenting to a group that has no idea what I'm talking about, and just really developing those skills. So definitely those courses that are more focused on external communication and helping you understand how to break down a big jargony topic into more digestible talking points for the public, or those are super helpful courses to take.
Yeah, that's so cool. I always tell people, do grant writing if you
Yes.
can, because it's so
Especially in public
important.
health, it's like
Yes.
number one.
Yes, 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 yes. So everyone watching, take the grant writing
Take grant
class.
writing.
And health communications, I mean, gosh, communications is like the number one skill in public health. I
Oh,
mean,
100%. You have to talk to
yeah.
people inside your organization, people outside your organization,
Mm,
people who are totally new to your subject and your expertise, and it
yeah.
can get really easy to get caught up in the jargon. And so learning how to break that down is so important.
Yeah, and you're communicating to all different skill levels and
Mhm.
diversities, and yeah,
Mhm.
you have to make sure that it's understandable for everyone. And I'm seeing a lot more on job postings asking for social media experience. Are you seeing a lot more communications being used in social media?
Yes, and especially in the policy world, things
Yeah.
move so quickly
Yeah.
that I really have to learn how to surf that social media wave and kind of
Mhm.
see what's going on and be able to respond quickly. Sometimes things are up for a vote the same day that they are announced, right? And so I have to like really make sure that the people who I need to be in communication with know to act quickly and how to act. And I have to be really clear about that communication because policy just it's either really, really slow or really, really fast, and there's just
Yeah.
no in between.
That's a good description. And what would you say are like the top three skills you use in your
I
job?
would sum it up into one, just communication.
Yeah.
I know we've
Yeah.
been saying that, but I, for 90% of my job, I am writing, I am talking, or I'm presenting. That is like all of my work is in communication. And I have to be able to communicate with a politician who has certain priorities, and I have to learn how to communicate in a way that my priorities are lining up with their priorities on both sides of the aisle. I have to talk to different directors of other nonprofits who have their own projects that they're working on, and try and figure out how we can all align our priorities so that we can move the needle for the folks that we're serving.
Yeah.
And I have to be able to write really concisely in like an email all day long. I have to do a lot of, like I said, op-eds and newspaper articles, and making sure that my writing is clear and strong and concise. So honestly, just communication and being comfortable
Yeah.
with presenting to large groups, being comfortable with answering questions on the fly from
Yeah.
people, whether that's a politician or a news reporter or a staff member. I have to be able to be quick on my feet and be able to answer questions. So communication is
Wow.
number one.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh. What would you say so far has been the most rewarding either project or thing that you've been involved in your job?
That's a great question. So I'm really humbled to serve the food banks because they just serve so many people, and are responding to a lot of crises going on right now in the country. So that's just overall, it's so rewarding to work with groups that are doing such good work. In terms of the most rewarding thing that I've done so far, I've been able to travel to DC twice now with other advocates across the country and be able to talk about food insecurity to our delegation. And that was so humbling and so rewarding to just
Yeah.
get to see a little bit about how all that works. I always tell people, I think the word lobbying, the word advocacy can have like negative connotations, but it's so important to engage with your delegation, even if you don't end up working in policy. They have to make so many decisions with limited information. And so it's so important for us to get our messaging out there. And so it's really humbling to be able to go on those trips and be able to speak to the issue for sure.
Wow, that's amazing. That is super cool. Okay, so on the flip side, what has been some of the challenges or challenge that you faced in this role?
Totally. So definitely with public health, with nonprofit life, and especially in policy,
Yeah.
everyone wants to do good, right? Like everyone
Sure.
has a great mission and everyone has a wonderful project. Everyone has important priorities. But unfortunately, there are just limited resources. And that can be really difficult to navigate when you are so passionate about your topic or your project, but you're having to compete with other groups who also are just as passionate as you are. So it's really important to learn how to work with other coalitions, learn how to use those social determinants of health and see where everything overlaps, so that the point is that the needle is moved, right? The point
Yeah.
is that people get access to better care, better services, better lives. And so how can you work with other nonprofits in a positive way, not just compete against each other? So that can be difficult sometimes, but I think everyone's starting to realize that like this is very important to learn how to do that. But yeah, it's just about leaning on each other's expertise and leaning on
Yeah.
each other's um, goals and priorities.
Yeah, I know that's like a big challenge in the public health world, and that was really well said. Thank you. Um, what hold on, I just how did you get into this? Because global
Sure.
health and health disparities, you probably did not think you were gonna do this when you started your program, right?
Not at all.
Yeah.
Policy was the last thing on my mind. When we started this program, I was like, I don't understand policy.
Yeah.
I don't like politics. Like it was the
Sarah,
last
I hear
thing.
that more than anything.
Yes.
I hear that all the time
Yes.
from
And
alums.
it can be a daunting world, honestly, and it's still a little new to me, so I'm still getting used to it. But I got into it my last semester. I did my final capstone project with Feeding Colorado. I just
Okay.
cold called and reached out and see if they needed any help.
Yeah.
And we're a super tiny staff of 2, but at the time it was a staff of 1, and so she was desperate for help, which was great for me because I got to
Yeah.
do a policy analysis on a state level policy for a program that helps food pantries. And so that was really a good experience in doing an analysis, consolidating information, all of that good stuff. And so I'm very thankful for it. It turned into a full-time job, but it really just comes from talking to people and reaching out and seeing where the need is. The policy world is so close knit, everybody knows everybody. And so just reaching out and seeing, even if one person may not have an opportunity, they will know someone else who does, you know. And so that's kind of how I got started into it. And I started to realize as I got into policy, again, it's less about politics and being highly, the word I'm going to use is emotional, but
Yeah.
more so driven by your story, driven by your data, and realizing that politicians and lawmakers rely on us. They rely on us to bring them the information and to make them aware of the problems, because there's so much to keep up with. And so it really is just more of an active service to our government leaders of like, hey, I know that you're overwhelmed and I can bring you some information that might help you make a better decision. So when you kind of frame it that way, and less of we're all getting in the ring of politics and getting messy, because that's not really the case. It's more
Yeah.
of a, how can I educate the people who are making decisions that will impact my community, impact the issues I care about? It becomes a lot less daunting.
Yeah, yeah. And we have a lot of people that want to get into policy when they start off in their public health journey.
Mhm.
And I think it's an amazing career path and so rewarding. And I'm sure you have found a love for it that you didn't know you had.
Absolutely. Yeah. You just stumble upon things sometimes and you're like, oh, cool. That is a passion I didn't know I had. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure I've said it before, but and that's one of the joys and bonuses of getting a master's in public health is you have this just wide variety of skill sets and
Yes,
you can apply them in so many different ways.
absolutely.
All right, my last question. If someone's watching this and they want to do work like you're doing, what advice do you have for them?
So definitely reach out to groups that you already know of and that you think are doing the work that you would want to do, and sit down and have a conversation with them. And then the second thing I would say is there are so many coalitions at the state level and at the national level that
Yeah.
have weekly, monthly, biweekly calls about the policy that they're focused on in every realm of public health. There's like housing policy, economic policy, food
Yeah.
policy, you know, all sorts of coalitions. And just listening in on those calls, because they're typically open to the public, can be really eye-opening of, okay, what are the current issues of today in Colorado or in another state or across the nation? And then more importantly, who is doing the work? Like honestly, just scroll through the Zoom and like write
Yeah.
down people's organization titles
Art.
and reach out to them and say, hey, I was on this coalition call with you. I'd love to learn more about what your organization does. But yeah, there's so many coalitions. They're all very welcoming and opening from my experience. And definitely read Katie's emails, use her as a resource. I remember like you helping me with my resume was so helpful. All the resources you put out were so helpful as
Yeah.
well.
Good,
And
good, good.
so don't do it by yourself. You don't have to do it by yourself. Lean on the people around you, lean on the people already doing the work. And everyone I've talked to in the space is so willing to help everyone, and so willing to help people get started, because we've all been there.
Yeah.
So definitely get involved in coalitions and reach out to the organizations that you think are interesting for sure.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your career path thus far. And I'm excited to see where you go from here. And thank you for doing amazing public health work, especially for the region you're serving, but just in general, advocating for food insecurities is amazing. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks for having me. And I hope this is helpful for folks.
Yeah, it definitely will be. All right. Bye.
Bye.